Do you run your own freelance business? Or maybe you're thinking about picking up some business on the side? Well, then you need FreshBooks. FreshBooks is the quickest and easiest way to get invoices out to your clients. It's easy to use. It works anywhere, available from any device, on the desktop, iPhone, iPad, Android, and all of your data is backed up and secure. And it makes it really easy to get organized and get paid. You'll be tracking time, logging expenses, and invoicing your clients in no time. You can also save time billing, freeing up several days per month to focus on the work that you love, and you get paid faster. FreshBooks customers are paid on average 5 days faster because there's a link on the invoice that says pay me now. And it's a great way to grow your business. Plus, FreshBooks is offering a 30-day trial. That's right, 30-day trial if you try them out. So go to gofreshbooks.com/devchat and enter devchat in the How Did You Hear About Us section. Once again, for a 30-day trial, go to gofreshbooks.com/devchat and enter devchat in the How Did You Hear About Us section.
Hey everybody, and welcome to another My Angular Story. This week we're talking to Juri Strumpflohner. I probably destroyed your name, I'm sorry.
No, that was perfect.
Do you want to just remind people who you are?
Yeah, sure. As you said, I'm Juri Strumpflohner. I'm from basically Italy, the very northern part, so in the middle of the Alps. And I'm a Google developer expert in web technologies, specifically in Angular. Right now, I'm focusing very much into Angular and everything around it. And I'm also doing some Egghead video courses online.
Awesome. So, I think we went on episode 193 of Adventures in Angular, which came out as we record this about a month ago. A little more than a month ago. So.
Yeah, I think so.
Anyway, this show, we kind of try and capture who you are and what you're about and all that good stuff. So let's go ahead and get a little bit of your story. And the place that I usually like to start is, how did you get into programming?
Well, I actually had to think about that a bit because I actually couldn't recall when everything started. So it was around more or less, I guess, in the end of the elementary school, sort of starting of the middle school, so around 11, 12 years. But it wasn't really programming, but my dad basically had a computer and I was always already interested in basically playing around with the computers. I also got a typewriter, so I was just being there, writing down letters on a typewriter. And one day he said, basically, when he got his computer for work, basically at home, and he asked me whether I would like to write my homework down with the computer. And I was like, yeah, sure, show me how it works. And so that was when I met Windows 3.1 at that time. And that was my first experience basically with a personal computer and with Microsoft Word. And it might sound strange, but that was actually when I started to get into programming because one day I discovered that red button, you could click on that menu inside Microsoft Word, which basically did some macro recordings. And that was really cool because all of a sudden I could record things. I could automate some basic steps in my Word document and then hook that onto toolbars and so on. And at one day, and then I even discovered, like, I was wondering how that actually works. And so I tried to dig a bit deeper. And that was when I then saw the editor behind the scenes, so which records basically instructions and how things actually worked with these macros. And so I started to dig in and try to understand how the different commands worked. And then I tried to change them basically and I customized them. So that was actually my first experience with programming, if you want to call that programming.
Awesome. It's interesting how many people come into programming from, oh, how do I do this? Or how does this work? And they start fiddling with it. And then it's like, oh, yeah, this is cool. This is fun. And then, they move on to other things and learn to do different things with it. So if that kind of piqued your curiosity with Windows 3.1, which I'm an old guy, so I remember that stuff too. How did you get all the way into like JavaScript and Angular?
Well, that took a long way actually, because I then remained more or less like I went to high school then, which was but more a commercial oriented school. So we had some business informatics there. You couldn't really call it computer science. And I still continued to do some Visual Basics for applications. So inside Excel, I created basically some some small applications, which even my dad used to work at that time. So to do some basic calculations. And that was really fun because I learned a lot out of that. And I got into real programming only later when I basically left high school. So starting with university there, I had really my first programming class where we started to do Java at the time. So that was how we started to really learn the different constructs and how classes, object orientation, that kind of stuff worked. That was also the time when I really then realized a lot of stuff I had already been doing, but I didn't actually know why. So it was basically that a lot of things started to really make sense. And JavaScript was only very, very later. So I started doing some GWT at that time in university, but always on my own. So I started to do some side projects. And I really loved to play around with UI. And Google at that time released the GWT, so the Google Web Development Toolkit. And you could really build like applications which were similar to Gmail, which was really cool. And obviously at that time writing it in Java. And so I continued that way. And then later I got more into web when I started to actually work. That was totally on the other side. So I started then at that time with Microsoft Technologies. So I came out of university and basically started working at a Microsoft shop. So a lot of web with ASP.NET at that time. And then around that time also, basically the whole web started to shift more to that single page application kind of thing. And so that made me curious because, as mentioned, I had already some experience with GWT, although you didn't actually write JavaScript, but you compiled it to JavaScript. You had from time to time to look into the source code. And so I dig more into that JavaScript front end part and started basically also to transform our ASP.NET server-side rendered applications to more like APIs with single page applications on the front end. So that was when my transition basically happened.
Cool. So how did you get to Angular then? I mean, with the single page applications and all that stuff. Yeah. Where does Angular come in?
That came a bit later. So when we started doing more front-end heavy applications, we used a framework which was called JavaScript MVC, which later then merged into what is known today, I think, CanJS or something like that.
Yeah.
It was basically on top of jQuery. But it was a really nice framework because it had already like compilation with the Clojure compiler built in and some MVC kind of system, also with some kind of entities mapping and a really, really powerful framework. And you could also get very quickly started because we already knew somehow jQuery. And so that was kind of familiar. Also, if you needed some UI plugins or something, you could basically just drop them in and it worked. And the only problem that framework actually had was a bit of the community side. So there wasn't that much of community around. So most of the time you could figure out the stuff yourself. But we then, at that time, at that work where I have been working, we basically were an institution that worked mainly for the public government. And so we also had to start basically work together with external companies, outsource some work as well. So where parts of it we have been developing inside and some parts basically other companies should develop on their own outside of our own basic control. And so it started to get more difficult because when you then start to talk to the initial talks with those companies, I was like the tech lead at that time. And it was really difficult because you basically had to teach them how JavaScript MVC worked. And that was when we then started to look around in some alternatives basically. And so we stumbled up on, I remember I gave a look at Angular.js at the time, Ember, and also Backbone, which were the major ones at the time. And then we then evaluated it within the team. We then started using Angular.js, so the version 1 at that time. And that worked out pretty well. So there was a lot of community. Also then if external companies came in to collaborate with us, you basically had just to figure out on the common style guide, and that was basically it, because they already knew Angular. They already were comfortable with that kind of developing the front-end applications. And so it was my first experience with Angular.js to version 1.
Yeah, that makes sense. It's interesting too. I mean, you've mentioned some of the advantages of using a well-used, well-understood technology, and that, yeah, you hire somebody and all they really have to do is come on board with your style guide and then they can just get right to work. I'm curious, what was it about Angular you're talking about Angular version 1. What was it about Angular that really appealed to you that made you go, oh, this is the tool that we want to use? Was it the community and the level of adoption, or was it something else?
It was a mix, I think, between the community but also the easy to use, because we compared then at that time, as I mentioned, Backbone, Ember, and Angular. And I basically did some example applications in there, and then we did like a meeting with the entire team, and I basically showed some examples to them. We started to hack around with them, and so the entire team basically then decided up for Angular.js. It was mostly because, there was a lot of examples online. So if you searched up something, you immediately found details about it, about Angular docs, and also a lot of blog posts. But also the kind of easiness to use it. At least initially when you start, it seems quite easy. Then, of course, as you go ahead and create more complex applications, you had to follow some guidelines, to follow some patterns. But those were as well quite easily findable, because there were a lot of already guidelines, like from John Papa online, which you basically have followed, and then you were on a good track to create some good applications, actually.
Makes sense. So you're still doing things with Angular. We've moved on to Angular 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I don't think there was a 3, actually. So 2, 4, 5, and 6. But
we skipped 3.
How has that transition gone for you?
Well, that was then, I think 2 years later or 3 years later, when we started with AngularJS, I went to Angular Connect. It was the first edition at that time in London. And I listened to a couple of presentations there, and basically Angular was just announced. I think it was announced like more or less a year before, but it was still in alpha beta stage. So it was kind of developed side by side on AngularJS. And it looked really nice. And then I also got basically a request from Pact Publishing what I would like to do some video course on some first versions of Angular. Basically on, I think it was about Angular components. Yeah, it was a video course about Angular components. And I was always curious to do some video coursing and some besides blogging, which I already did at that time. And it was also a good occasion to start looking deeper into how Angular works, to figure out really the details in order to also be able to do a proper video course, which had also the quality I wanted to have it. And so that was when I started to look deeper into Angular. And then I think more or less a year later, or more or less 8-9 months later, we then also started new applications, and those were then written in Angular directly.
Nice. So what have you done in Angular that you're really proud of?
I've mostly done, I think, like in the content production area. So I do participate in open source projects, but I did maintain a couple of AngularJS projects where I basically took them over from their prior maintainers or owners, and then continue to basically enhance them and provide bug fixes and feature requests. But in Angular, it's not that I'm really maintaining a single library. It's more like libraries I'm using, start contributing, start looking usually into the source code, and then often I bring over basically things I had used in other libraries. For instance, I did a lot of pull requests also for automating the release process of libraries, which then helped the authors of those libraries, and these kind of pull requests. So I like to dig deeper once I start to use external components in my Angular app. That's usually also how I then get involved in some projects. Like right now, I'm also collaborating a bit on NJX Formally and some couple of other libraries where I'm contributing. But mostly it's like content production. So I do write a lot of blog posts on my blog. I did that already before, but like in, I think the last 2 years, it's mostly Angular focused at the moment. Mm-hmm. So it's mostly around front-end development in Angular. And then the Egghead video courses online. So
cool. What are you working on now? I mean, you kind of talked about some of the things that you've done. Are you still working on the same kinds of things at this point?
Yeah, right now I'm preparing actually a talk for NG Talks, which is the first Angular conference, actually community-driven one in Ukraine, which is happening next week, so 9th and 10th August. And so I'm working on a talk there, and the final basically preparations of that talk. It will be around Angular forms, dynamic forms. So it will involve some NJX Formally, which I have just mentioned. So the one I've been using quite a lot in the past. It's because a lot of people don't actually know about it, and it's really powerful. So I thought I could contribute that way to the authors of that library to make it a bit more, give them a bit more visibility, basically.
Right.
And then I'm also doing a lot of workshops. So I have to prepare a couple ones which are upcoming now in September and October. So work there besides my day job. So it gets quite busy these days. And some Mac courses as well, yeah. So those are really the areas where I'm currently involved and where I'm currently focusing on.
Sounds good. Well, the last thing that we have to cover on this episode is picks. Do you have some things you wanted to shout out about on the picks?
For you, the listeners of My Angular Story, Loot Crate is offering an opportunity to save 10% on any new subscription at lootcrate.com. Just enter the promo code BRIDGE10 for 10% savings. Loot Crate is one of my favorite things. Every month I get a box in the mail, costs less than $20, and it comes with all kinds of goodies. I have stuff from, just looking at my shelf, Batman, Spider-Man, Ninja Turtles, Back to the Future, Lord of the Rings, Star Wars, and much, much more. So if you're a geek, a gamer, anything like that, and you want cool stuff to put around your office, cool t-shirts, comic books, etc., then definitely check out Loot Crate. To save 10% on your new subscription, go to lootcrate.com/Ruby. Again, that's lootcrate.com/Ruby to save 10% on any new subscription. Enter the promo code BRIDGE10 for 10% savings.
Yeah, for sure, Nginx Formally, the one I just mentioned. So definitely, if you're interested in dynamic forms, definitely check that out, because it's not only for dynamic forms, actually. It makes, I think, forms in general quite easier in Angular. Then check out Egghead.io. I really love their style, how they do videos, even before I started actually being an instructor there. So definitely check out some videos there. Also, if you come by some of the ones I've done, just give me some feedback. So that would be really cool. And the last one is a pick for the Mavic Air. I just got it last week, so it's really fun to fly around with them. So,
what is it again?
It was the Mavic Air, so I bought a drone, which I got last week.
Nice.
Yeah, it's really cool. Did some nice shoots.
Very cool. That sounds like fun.
Yeah, really. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah, and one of the Egghead guys, John, lives near here, so I see him periodically. So.
Oh, cool.
Great stuff there. All right, well, let's go ahead and... I've got some picks too. I should do some picks. So the first pick I have is I've been working on, and to my chagrin a little bit, promising a little bit, a course on how to find a job. And this is something I get asked for pretty regularly. And I'm going to do a pre-sale on the course. So if you're interested in, or if you're struggling to find a new job or find your first job, I've got content in there for both. And I also treat a lot of things for remote folks. So most of the course is, it's good for both. And I definitely cover, finding a job near you that you can go to work for. But yeah, we've also got... I'm covering the remote stuff because I have a number of people who live in areas where there isn't a strong tech community for them to hit. So that's out there too. But yeah, go to devchat.tv and then just click on courses or products. I can't remember what the link is, but it's one of those. Then you can go ahead and get that. There's going to be an option to buy the ebook, and then there's going to be an option to get the video course. You can get either of those. I'm basically selling them for 50% off until the course is released. So if you want to get a deal on that, then definitely go grab that. It will be released by Labor Day, which is the first Monday in September if you're not in the United States. And we'll have that out there. So if you're interested in it, go check it out. It's the thing that I get asked about more than anything else is, how do I find my first programming job? Or sometimes people wound up getting their first programming job, either within the company they were working for, or, through some connections through the boot camp they attended, and so they don't know how to do a job search. And so they're kind of lost when it comes to getting that next job, and they feel like it's time to move up and move on. So, the course covers all that stuff. So definitely check that out. You can also find it at getacoderjob.com. So I'll put all that out on the show notes. And then the other pick I have, and I've mentioned this on a few past shows, but I'm going to be speaking at the Framework Summit, which is in Park City, Utah. I live in Lehi, Utah, which is 45 minutes away from there. But Park City, Utah, it's October 2nd and 3rd, I think. And if you haven't been to Park City, it's this beautiful area. It's where they hold the Sundance Film Festival, if you're familiar with that. It's also just a really great town. It used to be a mining town, and now it's kind of a tourist town. And it's where the U.S. Winter Olympics team actually trains. But yeah, so it's going to be up there. And I'm going to be speaking about Stimulus.js, but they're also having members of the core teams from Angular, React, Ember, Vue, and a bunch of others coming out a couple days before the conference to kind of have their own little private summit. And then they're going to all be there for the Framework Summit to talk to us about kind of the future of JavaScript. So if you're interested in that, definitely show up and be there. I'm looking forward to it. But yeah, those are kind of things that I'm pushing and working for. So yeah.
Cool.
If people want to see what you're working on now, Juri, if they want to follow you, say on Twitter, or, blog posts or things like that, where do they get all that stuff?
Yeah, the best place is probably on Twitter. So I'm tweeting at Juri SDR, so everything together on Twitter. And with the same name, jurisdr.com, there's my website. But yeah, Twitter is probably the best way to catch up with me. Just drop me a line there. Always cool to meet new people.
Awesome. All right, well, we'll go ahead and wrap this up. Thanks for coming and sharing your story and talking to us a little bit about what you do in Angular.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right, well, we'll wrap this one up, folks, and we will catch you all next week.
Bandwidth for this segment is provided by CacheFly, the world's fastest CDN. Deliver your content fast with CacheFly. Visit CACHEFLY.com to learn more.